morning, everyone. My name is Trinea Gonczar, and I am the Director of Development here at Wayne County Safe. Today we're talking about people that use a position of power to their advantage, but in that same space with the idea that we're all human. Because I think that there's something that people forget in that space, because one, you're talking about a survivor or a victim, so they're just a survivor or a victim, but at the end of the day, they're still a human. Or that person's a predator, a rapist, an abuser, but again, at the end of the day, we're all human. So there's no real category for any one person, black, white, Asian, Arab. There's no one category for any one person. We're all in this together, and so protecting each other is kind of my direction of where it is I want to go with my platform. Who I am a survivor of Dr. Larry Nassar. So I'm a gymnast from Lansing. I knew him since I was 5, but he started abusing me when I was 8. So my story is a little bit different because when I went to court, I was Jane Doe B43. And I was doing my victim impact statement. And the morning that I went in, Jordan Weaver and Allie Raisman, their 2 Olympic gymnasts, had decided to come forward publicly. And Jordan Weaver's from my gym, and she's much younger than I am. So I knew when I saw her speak that she was going to reach one age demographic of our gym, and if I spoke publicly, if I didn't stay Jane Doe B43, that I was going to reach the older girls of our gym. And the reason that's important is because the older girls saw Larry 5 days a week, every single day in the gym. We knew him as a best friend, as a confidant, as our trainer. He wasn't even a doctor at this time. We saw him at his home. If you think of athletes, football players specifically, that have very hard impacting sport, they get to go sit in ice baths. Well, that's what he presented at his home. He would put us in bathtubs of ice. He would set an egg timer on the toilet. I don't know still how I did that, but I was 8. Sitting in a bath of ice from the waist down. So you'd go into the bathtub, you would be naked. You would get out of the bathtub, you'd put a towel on you, he'd come in, burn the ice with hot water, refill the tub, and put warm water in this bathtub where you'd then get back in the bathtub, push the egg timer, and start the process again so that you would do a hot, cold to your body. And then once you would get out, you would get dressed, you would put a t-shirt and shorts on, and in his living room was a table. And so there would be a lot of times other athletes, my sisters would be in the tub when I arrived, and then I would get out, he'd fill the tub with ice, they would go on the table. So it never was as if it was just one of us at a time solo. It almost seemed like a constant traffic. I talk about this because I think there's a really misconception of how this happened with him. And I think a lot of it has involved parent shaming. Again, we are all human. I know that in my situation, he sent my mom all the time. I've still got this girl on the table. She's still got to go through the 2 20-minute baths, and then she's going to be on the table for at least 30 minutes. So if you have errands to run, go ahead and do that. So being somebody that my mom trusted him. I mean, at that time, we didn't have cell phones, but he had a pager and a home phone that we were allowed to call at any time. He would see us at any time. And so being a very high-ranking gymnast, we needed that. So there would be days where I would see him twice at the gym, and then I had a major competition that weekend, so I would see him at MSU Sports Medicine, and then again at his home in preparation to a competition. And kind of how the grooming started for me, I mean, it's unfortunate, he would give others, not me, pins of the Olympics, jackets of things that he had been given, pictures with Olympians. And when you're a gymnast, gymnastics is an interesting sport because it's not like football. Not everybody tunes in to watch it on every Sunday or basketball games or whatever. It's pretty much Olympic. You tune in to the Olympics to watch gymnastics. Like, that is probably the biggest sport of the Summer Olympics for the world because it's this one time gymnastics is actually viewed. So you train for that. You don't train for anything else. You train for the Olympics. So when you're given a pin from the Olympics, when you're given a signed picture from the Olympics of these gymnasts that you watch and you aspire to be like so heavily, that is something that you feel that you cherish. In my case, I was given Skittles. I know that sounds silly, but that was the one snack we were allowed to eat that was off our nutritional guidelines. And so when we'd go back to see him and we were having a hard day, he would give me Skittles. I would get a red one or a yellow one or a purple one. That would be like his gift to me. So there were simple ways that he would use his power against me. I kind of became essentially the practice body. They estimate for me it was over 856 times that I was abused. So, sorry, I know it's a little heavy, but he conditioned me for other survivors to come to me and say, Trinea, I think Larry did something bad to me. I said, well, what did he do?
It's okay, because I was already tearing up before you started.
Anyways, he would say, what did he do? And I said, don't worry about it. He does that to me all the time. You're good. So, I silenced a lot of people. A lot. And I think that that's something that I will never forgive him for, is that one thing. Because people did come to me and knew that things were going bad. Because you don't go and have a vaginal treatment done, a pelvic floor treatment, for an ankle. You don't go and have your lower back treated, or your anus in some cases, for a shoulder. So he started having red flags go off. Bree Randall's one of my dearest and nearest friends. She was the survivor that did go to the police back in 2004. And I remember she went to high school with my little sister. And I remember thinking to myself, if I could get to her, I could make her understand that what happened to her was okay. Because what happened to her is she went to the police, again, a position of power, and the police told her she misunderstood sexual assault. And the reason why she was told that is because Larry presented them with a PowerPoint presentation of this exact treatment and how of an expert he was in this specific treatment and the benefits that came from this treatment. So he also asked in the police department if there was a woman police officer that would be willing to use their body in front of as a presentation so he could do the treatment so they could all understand what happened in the treatment. So naturally, everyone said no, because who would do that? And immediately it got shut down. So the case got dismissed. It was pushed aside. Bree Randall was made to feel like she was a liar, that she was sexual, and that she was confused with her sexuality, and that the way that she had behaved with other boys, or if she was having sex, that she was using this situation as a position of power. She was trying to go after him. So fast forward to where we are now. I lived in Puerto Rico probably about 3 years ago, and it was December 16th, and that's my birthday. That's why I remember. They had come out with the child pornography. So up until that point, I had been defending him. I had kept saying, there's going to be these doctors that are going to come forward. He has to have people that are going to come forward, and they're going to prove this entire scenario to be false, that this was in fact a medical necessity, and that he did just become the expert in this, and that the reason that he's having this confusion is because maybe he didn't explain it properly, or maybe someone misunderstood, or maybe they hadn't had a vaginal treatment before, and so this was alarming for them, but there's a benefit. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, all of his mentors, only I found out this later, all of his mentors were explaining that this specific treatment should never be done in pubescent humans. It should only be done in, especially for women that have had their period. Obviously, I was 8, so that's not the case. But I did have surgery on my ovaries when I was 14, and I was had I had polycystic ovaries, so I had an ovary cyst burst, and I was in an emergency surgery. And I remember being with those doctors and them keep asking me, we know that you've had sex, and we need you to tell us, because what they were thinking is that I was having an ectopic pregnancy,
Right.
that I was having some sort of like the baby was, and I'm like, I'm a virgin. And they're like kicking my mom out of the room, my dad out of the room, every other doctor coming in, like, we need you to be honest with us. We need you to tell us, we know that you are not a virgin. And I'm like, I am a virgin. Why does everyone think I'm lying? Well, when you've had someone manipulating your vagina for however many years of my life, however many times, to them, they think I'm literally lying. And I never pieced certain things together because I actually woke up from surgery to Larry because he was a doctor. So he had access into the recovery room. And I'm thinking to myself, thank God he's here. Because it was so scary for me. I had known, he was this familiar face. He was a smiling face. He was happy. And when I started to think back at that moment, like, one, why was he there? And then I think in these situations, your mind plays tricks on you. You start thinking, like, maybe I did something. Maybe I did this. Maybe I confused him, and maybe you thought I wanted that. You start doing things in your mind. And I think he was there because he was worried that I told somebody that he was doing something to my vagina. I think that's the only, because I can't completely understand still to this day why he was there.
To put his spin on it.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yep.
And again, a position of power. So who else could be in that room? Him. Nobody else could be in that room but him. So fast forward to now. I did my impact statement. I was Jane Doe B43. And the reason most people know who I am now these days is because I'm the one that made him cry. So if you're familiar with our case and the impact statements that happened, that was me. I'm the person that my impact statement went viral in a matter of 24 hours. I had over 1,000 messages on my Facebook page.
Now the features are coming out.
Yeah, and I had much longer. Well, my hair was up,
Yeah.
and I don't wear my hair up now,
Yes,
only to not be that person. But yeah, so I made him human in that moment because everyone thought of him as a monster. And because he was acting like one, he was, non-reactive. He wasn't being the person that I knew. And I only decided to do my impact statement that week. I had originally written one to send in to have read for me. And then I started to see some of the girls, and I remember telling my mom, they're so young. And she said, you were that little too. But I had to stick up for them, like truly in my guts. I had to stick up for them. So the person that I was seeing on the camera was not the person that I knew. And if I didn't get that person when I spoke to him, he was dead. It was not the same person. He was gone. It was over. He was gone. I got into the courtroom. I didn't let him see me at first. I sat in the very back. To be honest, I was freshly pregnant and super nauseous, and so I was just like making sure I had an out for the bathroom. But as they selected me to be one of the closers, which basically made these like strongest statements to go last, I decided to go public. And before I had gotten up to the stand, probably like 2 girls before my impact statement, he immediately started sobbing. He saw me and he just kept mouthing to me, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was getting so mad at him for not listening to these other people. And also, I didn't know these girls. Like, I didn't know any of them. They were so much younger than me in gymnastics too, and because I'm under John Gettert, there is a really strong loyalty to him and to that sport. And a lot of us have gotten backlash for bringing this out about our sport because this is not just us. I mean, this is not just gymnastics. This is not just John Gettert. This is not just Larry Nassar. Like, there are coaches all over. Some committed suicide already because they got outed. You know, there's all these things that are coming out with these other sports, so it's not isolated to us. But our case went so big because one after another, after another, after another kept coming forward, and it went from 80 to 100 to 125 to 160 to 300, and I say this with all honesty, there are thousands. These are just the ones that came forward. And these are the ones that reported. And I didn't even do a police report, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, except for about 3 months ago. I came forward to do my impact statement to him. I didn't go there to get money. I never for one reason thought I was afraid of the judge. I didn't know her. She was terrifying, actually. This was between he and I. I was there to have a conversation with him. I wanted him to know that he hurt me and that I was going to take care of the girls. So, fast forward to today. I came to Wayne County Safe because one of our survivors had attempted suicide the night that we did our victim impact statement. So the same Friday that I did mine, she did hers, and that night she tried to kill herself. So she was put in the hospital, she was taken into the ER, and she was admitted to their mental health space. I think 4 days later, she was let back out. She attempted suicide for the second time. They kept putting her in a mental health space as if she's crazy. And I kept thinking to myself, like, this is so wrong. Like, she's not getting any help. And if she's not getting help, think of how many others are out there that are feeling this exact same way, that have no way to get help and don't know where to go. So they just want to end it. Like, there has to be something or somewhere or someone that gets it. So I started asking around. I literally went to Google and started typing who can help with sexual assault victims, who can help survivors of sexual assault trauma center, sexual assault counseling, counselors for sexual, I mean, literally, you name it, I Googled it. I started asking people, and everyone kept pushing me to Kim Hurst. You need to talk to Kim Hurst in Wayne County Safe. And I'm like, what's Wayne County Safe? I don't know what this is. And you think in our space, because we were so public, we would have been given resources. Like, they would just be coming out the door.
I'm amazed by that.
We got zero. Not one thing was handed to me. I had to start mentoring for myself and as an advocate for our sisters. What do we do? Where do we go? And I don't blame anybody, because I don't think anybody in that situation knew how many there were going to be. I think there was such an overwhelmed space that they were just trying to get to the next day and make sure that people were in line and protected and whatever, that they didn't know even where to think about how to help us. And it's funny, because I think about it, the first night that we did like a preparation meeting for our impact statements, they gave us stones. Little stones that had like courage, power, strength. And when you think about it, you have given stones to survivors that are now about to speak in court against this pedophile. Like, wrong thing, because we probably all just wanted to throw these stones. When you think about it, it's really not like the most, and I think that there was like a small joke about that, because nobody did do that. But there was some
healing stone.
Yeah, the healing stone.
Yes,
exactly.
You're supposed to rub them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You're meant to
They're
rub
healing
them.
stones.
Exactly.
It gives you whatever's on
yes,
there.
Yes, it does.
Serenity,
strength.
supposed to strength.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Courage.
Yeah, they're doing a lot with domestic violence victims.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then you think about it, you're like, gonna throw
right.
stones. But anyways, that was kind of like the one single joke that came about of what happened to us. So anyways, I made him human. There's a couple Facebook messages that I did get that I didn't prepare for. And one was, I didn't kill myself today because of your impact statement, because you made me feel human. You made me feel like there's somebody else that gets it. So I met with Kim. I met with Katie. I met with Lori, our former fund development director, and explained who I was and what I was after. And I sat with Kim for a long time, and she really kind of helped me navigate what the true trauma centers are in our country. And again, they're focused on mental health, so not survivors of sexual violence. So my goal coming to Wayne County Safe was to change this whole idea of how survivors can find out about help. Because if in our case we didn't get help, there's survivors everywhere that have no clue where to turn unless they decide to go to the hospital to get a rape kit where then our advocates and our nurses are called in, and that's when they learn about Wayne County Safe. It's in crisis. It's not in prevention. It's not in conversation. Even still now, I'm out in so many spaces talking about Wayne County Safe, and they're like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to get, I spoke last week or a week and a half ago, and we're trying to get magnets in the bathrooms of bars. We're trying to get stickers in coffee shops. We're trying to have flyers in OBGYN offices, hospitals, because we don't want people to find out about us after they need us. We want everyone to know about us because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I hate saying that because it's so heavy. Yeah, it really is. But I would rather everyone knew when it's your neighbor or your sister or your friend or your mom or whoever it is, that there's resources for you. So, past Larry, another position of power of a person that really affected us extremely negatively was the interim president, John Engler.
Yes.
I will try to stay away from politics and speaking on behalf of the president, but nonetheless, these are people that have used their power to try to sway decision making for the wrong reasons. And John Engler, Kaylee Lorenz is one of my little sweet babies. She's 19, and she's like literally this big. And John Engler is this scary, big, burly man. And she went head to head with him and outed him about what it is that he had been doing with her and trying to have these private conversations with her and try to give a settlement that, she would accept. And she's like, I'm not here to talk about money. I'm here because I want you to I want you to talk to a survivor. And I thought maybe if I came here and I tried to talk to you, that you would have at least talked to one of us, because you haven't talked to one of us yet, not one. And you keep fighting that you're going to treat us like your daughters, but you're not treating us like your daughters. You aren't even talking to us. You're acting as if it's you against us instead of us as a united front, and let's make true change. Because we've been fighting legislation, we've been fighting the statute of limitations, we've been fighting for all survivors. And I think that that's how things, unfortunately, are being used against the people that need the good. And we all need the good. And when you have persons of power using their power to keep money as their topic or to keep money as their focus, you're never going to really have a united front of people that are really trying to make change for the right reasons. So with that being said, I've had to learn to align myself. I've had to accept that we're not going to all be on the same page, and that people are going to talk bad about us, and that people are going to victim shame, and people are going to parent shame, and people are going to think that we're out for money. People are going to call us the NASCAR survivors, whatever the hell they want to call us. But we want to change what happened to us for everyone. And the only way that we're able to do that right now is because there's so many of us, and because the whole world knows about us. So for these kind of conversations, and I applaud Florence for having these and inviting you all to come, because it doesn't matter the size of the group. It doesn't matter how many people we're talking to. If you leave here feeling like you can do something more, then we've done our job. Because if you don't leave here thinking like, gosh, I would love to put stickers in this restaurant that I frequent, or I would totally love to see if I can get my doctor's office to talk to Wayne County Safe, or, these kind of things, then it just ends here. And we really don't want that to be the case, because, one of my best friends and she asked me to speak on her. She was going to be here today, Amanda Tomichel. She is the survivor with the short blonde hair that right now is all over the news. She's the one that's single-handedly taking down MSU, because her case specifically in 2014, she went and saw Larry in MSU sports medicine one time, first time ever, and he abused her. And she sat on that table and told him to stop and said, you're doing something wrong. I can feel it. She was 24 years old. I know this is wrong. Something's wrong here. She could see the pictures of all the Olympic gymnasts that he had on his wall with signatures with him. And she said, there are others that he's doing this to, and they're all up on the wall. And they don't understand, because I just was sexually abused. So she went to the police, she went to Michigan State, she did her Title IX, she told trainers, you name it. She told every single person that you should tell, and every single person along that line did everything wrong. They told her it was misunderstood. They told her that it was technically medically sound. They told her that she had no case. So this was in 2014. So for the last 3 years, she thought she misunderstood sexual assault. She thought she did everything she could, and she actually has heaviness in her heart that she didn't learn about the law. She didn't go to law school. She didn't go to medical school because she feels that she could have done more to learn about what happened to her. And there are 60 survivors after her that were abused, and that carries for her in her heart so much. She sees these survivors and feels guilty for that she should have done more. And, for me, I silenced a lot. For her, she feels like she didn't do enough. People don't know about that stuff behind closed doors for us. They just see these images of us and these pictures of us and documentaries that are coming out and speaking engagements, and they think that we're like so super strong. And you see it, it still brings me to tears, like daily. Katie, she sees me constantly. I'm like, today's really hard, and Kim, take a day, take a self-care day. Kristen, all of these people can see me because they're in my everyday life. My husband sees me when I'm watching myself on the news, like. I didn't even know I was going to be on the news tonight, So there's these things that this image of us, that we are put in a position of power that we shouldn't be in, is kind of the image that's painted by like the governor, former president in Michigan State, but that we're out just for money. And the interesting thing about money is that it was given to the right people, because we plan on making change. Like, we plan on working with survivors and making sure that they all have a voice, and that whatever it's going to take to get them to feeling safe, or to feeling heard, or to have comfort, or to get counseling, or to get a rape kit, or whatever it is that they need, that we are going to support them, and now they have an army. So, past me, I'm going to introduce Miss Bass. Her story is a little bit similar in context, but also very different. Not to put her on the spot, but I think her story is amazing, and she's such a survivor, and I'm really proud of her to be here. This is her first time speaking. So I'm here for you as you go through this part.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Latonya Bass. Excuse me. I am a survivor. There's a couple of things I'm going to be talking about when it comes to power, how it was used against me. When I was in high school, I'm 49. I'll be 49. I was in high school, and I was more into my academics at first. And then when it came to like my junior, senior year, I said, well, let me go ahead and try out for basketball. I'm tall, so, see what happens, what have you. And I did play a little ball, not much, but I played a little ball. So it came down to tryouts, you do it back then we had to, I went to Chatsey High School, and we, endurance, we did all things like that. And I couldn't get past that, And I remember, I don't know if it was a year before, but I remember seeing the young guy that was playing basketball, and he fell out on the basketball court years ago, and he died on the basketball court, So I said, well, I have to go, because I was having chest pains really bad, so I need to go get that checked out. So at this point, I'm 18 now. So I go to see a cardiologist that was referred to me by my primary physician in Latonya, which is in Latonya. And so when it came time for me to see him in the examination room, he told me to undress from the top, up everything off and put the rug on. He came back. He was the only person in there with me the whole time. And the examination, he had me set up. I'm there to get an EKG, mind you. I'm there to get an EKG. I don't know much about these things. I'm 18 years old, so I knew that they were supposed to be checking my heart. And while I'm sitting there and propped up, he begins to give me a breast exam. I'm fully exposed, and the breast exam felt like it was going on forever. And mind you, I'm thinking in my head, is this supposed to be happening? Am I supposed to be getting a breast exam? You know, I don't know. And I froze because I felt like, is this right? This doesn't feel right. But what I learned later from coming to a group here is something that's called tonic immobility. I heard of fight or flight, but I didn't know of a flight, or freeze. I didn't know about that. So when I think back, I just froze. And it felt like it was forever. He's doing this, whatever. And mind you, the whole time he has his penis on my hand, up against my hand, and it was erect. So this is just the breast exam. We haven't gotten to the EKG yet. So finally he sets me up for the EKG. And the whole time I'm there, my breasts are exposed. The whole time. And after it was over, thank goodness it was over, and after a while, excuse me,
Take your time. That's all right.
and when it was over, and they told me I could leave, I ran out of there. I ran out of there as fast as I could. Got in my car and drove home. I never told anybody about it. I felt like, why did this happen? This is a doctor. Why? That's all I kept saying was, why? What did I do? Was it the way I dressed? I was covered up, you know. So I felt like, okay, just this girl from Detroit, you know, older white man out here in Latonya. Like, will I be believed? Because I had been molested as a child and I wasn't believed. Now I'm 18. Will I be believed? This is someone that you're supposed to trust. You know, this is a doctor, someone that's supposed to look out for your health, your well-being. And I'm going there to find out what's going on with my heart. And this happened to me. So I never went back. So of course I just couldn't, you know, I never went back. But this whole time I didn't tell my grandmother who I was living with. I didn't tell anyone. I had been dealing with feeling guilt and shame, and I felt depressed. I even had suicidal thoughts. Like, why would someone who's supposed to take care of people do that to them? You know. So when I heard, you hear things on TV, especially with what happened with the Gonczar case and all the survivors, it just triggered me all over again. And now, you know, that's why when people say, well, why didn't they come forward? You don't know till you're in that situation what you would do. And then I saw like how so many people, I'm like, oh my Lord, how many young girls and women coming forward And I thought like, but this doctor that did this to me, how many other people did he do this to? You know. So when that Gonczar person got caught, I was like, thank goodness someone did something finally. Some things I don't understand is the people that are surrounding this person are turning a blind eye. You know, these are children. Children. Things happened to me as a child. People don't understand this can affect a person in so many different ways, in different levels of their life. And to still, to this day, hear this in the news about how people doing things to children is sickening. It's sickening. You know, and some people, some abusers have gotten probation, 3 years, 2 years, a year, whatever. But the victim, the survivor, this is something that affects you the rest of your life. You'll have the times when you're feeling good. You know, you'll have the times when you're feeling good. You think, okay, I made it through this. I made it through this week. I made it through this month, or what have you. There's something can trigger you. You know, you can be back to this level where you're feeling down or feeling all these different emotions, and you can get yourself back up. You know, some people have this. Everyone has their own level of healing. I just get so upset because it's just these people. I just don't understand how this just keeps going on and on and on.
Well, and I think too, just spinning on what she said, how this does carry. I can't speak for her, but I can't imagine going and seeing another cardiologist ever. I gave birth 7 months ago, and I would only allow women in the room. And I'm lucky enough to be in a city where that's common because of religious practices, that's a very common thing. And I specifically asked for the hospital that did that because I was not capable of going to see a male doctor. And I don't think men are bad, all men. But there are really bad ones. And it's until we have other men that hold men accountable to not turn the blind eye or not suggest that they're not telling the truth or fear that they're going to not believe you. I think we've got a really long way to go because if women could have fixed this, we would have. So we need those men allies to actually help us make this better. And I think that that's a lot of like what's happened for both of us when you don't get believed. There's certain levels of those first interactions with who you tell are so important. So if you tell a police officer and they instantly ask you, why were you there? What were you wearing? Are you sure he wasn't just giving you an exam for your EKG? There's that automatic assumption that they don't believe you. You're not believed. This whole conversation's a waste. I should never have told anybody. It was a big fat waste. And it has to be the flip. The survivors have to be the focus, and the offenders need to be the ones that are on the questions. Like, what were you doing there? Why were you touching her breasts? Why? Explain to me what that has to do with this. You know, because for her, I don't speak for you, but you do trust a doctor.
Absolutely.
You do trust your teacher. You trust a police officer. You trust a priest. And right now, those are positions of power that are so, so difficult to trust because of what's happening and coming out about survivors. Go ahead, please. Yeah, please. She has a little more to share.
Yeah, I was also speaking of as far as abuse of power, as a relationship that I was in. It was a domestic abuse relationship and a sexual abuse relationship. And with that situation, I hadn't heard myself going through it of relationships where you'd be raped in your own relationship. This was someone. When I met him, I lost my mother in 2000. I met him in 2002, and losing mother, I'm the oldest of 9, and the youngest was 8 at the time when we lost her to pancreatic cancer. That was a lot to take on and a lot to deal with. And we hadn't lost anyone in our immediate family that all live here in Detroit, in Michigan rather, until that point. So when I met this person, I was very vulnerable emotionally because I really didn't want to deal with having a relationship after losing my mother anyway. And he pursued me. He was a friend of my brother's. I avoided him for a while, and then eventually, because he would just always just try to talk to me, and eventually we started talking. And what took our relationship to the next level was after a couple of months was when the anniversary of losing my mother came around, and he was there for me. He happened to be there for me, and I looked at that in a different way. Like, okay, well, maybe I'll give him a chance. He's here for me on this day that I needed someone. So in the beginning of our relationship, everything was good. Everything was fine. He was nice. He was cordial. He was considerate. He was charming. He was all these things, funny. Time goes on. Like a year, we moved in together, and that's when things started changing. It was small things here. Oh, where you going? Okay. Let me know when you get there. Call me as soon as you get there. Whatever. And but he was like, when he was around my family, he was just nobody thought anything. Nobody knew anything. So as time went on, he became very possessive rather, very possessive. I didn't, try to move the story along a little bit. He would get upset if I didn't have sex with him. He would curse me out if I didn't have sex with him. It got to the point where he eventually just took it from me. Mind you, the grooming came along first. So I was thinking, like, what the hell is going on here? What's going on here? Then he would say, oh, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Or, you know how I am. You know I'm a good person. So, okay. Time goes on, it got worse before it got better. But he would be around, we would be around my family, he'd be a totally different person. And he made me afraid because he raped me at gunpoint. He raped me at knife point. So he threatened to kill my family. He threatened to kill whoever that was close to me. And I tell you the truth, I felt like, okay, how do I get out of this? We were living together. How do I get out of this? My family, and I saw what he did to someone. This before he did anything to me. I saw what he did to this man that owed him money. One punch, out in the street, boom, out, and I was like, he told me to drive off. I drove off. I said, okay, So I'm looking like, you think, okay, he's, he can protect himself. This is something I didn't. But I didn't think he would put his hands on me. And he was a very strong person. He was a very strong person. He was tall and a very strong person. And I was truly, truly afraid of this person. And I drank, in order to be around this person. I drank in order just to be, you know, to try to numb myself from this situation. And it felt like I was thinking I had to figure out how am I going to get out of this relationship? How am I going to get out of this? And it took me a while to be able to get out of this relationship because he would come to my job. I worked in home health care. He would come to my job. I worked the midnight shift, and he would make me have sex with him in the car. And that's how I ended up losing my job because he would constantly come up to my job, call my job, constantly. And then I'm like, what is? So I ended up losing my house, losing my job. I'm living with family. He still was coming to my house, demanding sex, demanding this, demanding that. He beat me. So I guess I broke a vessel in my eye. I don't know, my eye was bloodshot. My whole eye was bloodshot red. And I at this point, I said, either I'm going to kill him or he might kill me. I don't know. So I did go downtown to get a PPO. I got the PPO. He didn't care about the PPO. I woke up in my brother's house, whom I'm living with him standing over me in my bed, standing over me while I'm laying down in my bed. I just happened to, I don't know how long he was standing there, but I happened to roll over and notice that he was right there in my house. He could have killed me right then there if he wanted to. So when it got to the point where this one day he did come to the house where I was living with my brother, because I really want to call it my house. When my brother happened to be there, and I got so fed up. He was drunk, and I was so fed up that I got this knife that the client that I was working for gave me. It was a bread knife, and he did I don't know what, something triggered me, and I ran to go get this knife. It was a really sharp bread knife. I didn't realize how sharp it was until I used it on him. I was aiming for his neck, but my brother grabbed me, and I cut him from here to here on his face, and he's bleeding. I'm like, I didn't even realize it was that sharp. I was like, oh my God. And he said something. He said, don't worry, I'm not going to press charges. And he went off the porch, and I ran after him with this knife down the street. And that's when I said, I can't do this. I can't do this because I'm losing myself because of this person. So after that, I said, that's it. I did call the police a few times when I had that PPO, and they didn't show. They didn't show. So the only thing that saved him and myself was that he moved out of town. And I can't remember what year that was. And I went through this phase where I was drinking heavily. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to find some place that I could go to for help with dealing with my emotions and what was going on with me from being in that relationship with him and being sexually abused. Even as from when I was sexually abused as a child, because I was having flashbacks, I was having triggers, everything from seeing things on the news with the Sandusky case, all these things was going on. And I was calling numbers, just trying to find a lot of places. I live here, down here in Midtown now, which I've been living there for like 9 years. And I've been trying to call places and find places, but a lot of places that I would find, a couple places that I found were, like there was one place in Westland. It was not, they were too far, and I didn't have a car. And I kept calling, and I'm calling for months and months. And somehow I got this number here, this number. And they had only been into operation for 3 months. 3 months. And they happened to be down the street from me. So this place here is
It shows how important this is. Absolutely.
help has to be there. You cannot have cities where there's not that kind of help out there for survivors because there are survivors out there. You know. So I appreciate this company so much.
I hope this was beneficial for you guys.
Thank you, Jen.
There is questions if you have them. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna let
Kelly,
Mia go for, I'm gonna let somebody else